Okay, good afternoon. It's Matt Bladen of Musipedia of Metal. Hi there, Matt.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
No
And
problem.
of course, it's a special night tonight for the CMF Cardiff Music Festival because we have got the metal night going on tonight, which of course is exactly your cup of tea. And
Yes, it is.
that's why we've invited you along today to say a few words and tell us a little bit about the website and your Facebook site as well.
So I started the Musipedia Metal nearly 10 years ago. Basically, I finished university and I did very academic subjects in university. And I wanted to continue to write about something. And the only other thing I knew anything about was metal, was heavy metal and rock music. And because I'd been sort of, entrenched in that from when I was a kid. And we've slowly built up to a point now that I have quite a small, but we're all very close-knit team of people who are as interested, some may say nerdy, about it as I am. And we review albums, we review gigs, we do interviews. The guys are all really helpful when doing it. They're up for going to all sorts of places. We've been all around the country with a lot of the local South Wales bands, and that's where we base a lot of our focus now as well, is on the South Wales based bands, because personally I feel that metal music and rock music and the kind of that underground kind of style is not as well represented in South Wales as it should be. So if we can do a little bit to get it more recognised, to get these bands' names out there a little bit more, where they are known, outside of South Wales, say, that's all the better for us. And because of that, we've, they've become friends, and they've become, some of them have even become contributors. You know what I mean? They've been playing other places or going to other things, and they've written up things for us and things like that. So yeah, we go kind of, we're mainly based in South Wales. We do go over to Bristol quite a lot because you can't keep every gig in South Wales. A lot of them do go to Bristol, but we travel everywhere. I mean, I know that there's a band that I think they'll be playing later called King Kraken, and we went up to Sheffield with them because they got taken onto the Hard Rock Hell shows, got booked up there, and we went all the way up to Sheffield to follow them up there. So we always try and support the scene as much as possible that way. But it was mainly just done as something to write about and something to kind of get involved with. And it for a lot of us, it's a way of getting away from day jobs and getting away from things like that. It's something we all enjoy,
So I'm interested then, Matt, because I work in a university. In fact, I work at the University of South Wales, and I'm involved with the festival tonight. So firstly, which university did you go to?
Cardiff University.
Cardiff University. So you're a bright young chap. Well done. And you said you wrote about kind of academic theoretical stuff. What was your degree?
My degree is in classics, ancient Roman and ancient Greek history.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So so I'm thinking that leads me. I'm thinking of rock music. I'm thinking Spinal Tap.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of bands that incorporate that kind of.
There must be, yeah.
There's a band called Ex-Dio who are from Canada but are Italian, and they're completely Roman themed. They wear the full panoply, and they've got everything, and all their albums are about Roman emperors, and there's a lot of that kind of style. I especially, because my other half is Greek, our photographer on the blog is Greek, so I get a lot of Greek bands that we review, as well as
well, rock music's really big in Greece, isn't it?
Massive. The stoner scene especially is huge over there, and black metal as well, which is weird. It's a Christian conservative country, and black metal's massive. It's really strange, but there's loads of those bands, and obviously incorporate Greek history and things. So
I mean, because the thing with kind of for the public perception, I suppose. Like I've just interviewed Ramesh Dodin-Goda, the Grammy nominated music producer. And it gets into these territories. Sort of, I grew up in the classic rock kind of age, I suppose.
Okay, yeah. Well, so did I.
Way before. Okay, all right. So you're familiar with that as well. I mean, these days, it's Fuel, I suppose, is the go-to place for sort of in Cardiff as a venue. But when I grew up, there was a place called Smiley's, which went a long time ago, and there was Bogies, and there was the original Moon Club, and these kind of places.
Yeah.
But kind of rock music was sort of rock music then. But now you've got metal, and it's like so many different derivations. You mentioned,
huge.
How does it become stoner? How do you know when it's stoner for the uninitiated?
I come from a classic rock background. My parents are classic rock and prog because my parents were brought up in the 70s. So they come from the kind of Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Genesis and early Genesis and all that sort of stuff. So I was brought up with all that, but moving into the more sort of genres. So I suppose it's a lot of it comes from media. So one of the key examples is the new wave of British heavy metal in the 80s. So bands like Maiden,
which was Tang Tang and all that stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And that was written in Kerrang, or sounds as it was then. Just this is the new wave of British heavy metal, and that stuff.
I remember it being it was always abbreviated, wasn't it?
Nawabum.
Yeah.
Nawabum is the abbreviation. Yeah. So the abbreviation itself has a word. So now you just go Nawabum, and people know what you're on about. But stoner comes from the sort of Black Sabbath sound, that low, slow kind of sort of sound, and then you've got doom, which is slower again and longer again and louder again, and it's hard to keep up with. Sometimes you see some of it, especially as from a writer's perspective, you see some of these things and they send you a blurb or they send you an EPK or something like that, and they've got what the genre is, and you look at it and go, what does that mean? Some of them are really strangely just you look at it and go, that's not a genre. And then when you listen to it, you kind of go, oh, it's this or it's this. But they've made up their own genre to try and,
Yeah. I mean,
we had one called Gardening Core.
What? Sorry?
Gardening Core.
What the hell's that?
So it was a band that played grindcore, which is like really fast, aggressive thrash, or really short songs. Bands like Napalm Death.
Yeah.
Grindcore, yeah. But this was all about gardening, so they called themselves Gardening Core. It was
fantastic.
You just kind of see some of the things that you read, and you do sit there and chuckle to yourself and think, this is just.
I suppose so. As you're the writer, you're writing about this stuff all the time. Effectively, you're a music journalist within a kind of specific field. You've got to be sure you don't categorize these bands into the wrong subgenre, I suppose.
Yeah, oh, very much so. If you've got a band that are, heavily into, say, death metal, and you call them black metal or you call them something like that, you've got to be careful, because you will have people going, well, they're not black metal, they're death metal. They're not, you know what I mean? You have the whole thing of that's not metal. So if a band are too light, you get a lot of criticism that, oh, they're not metal anymore. They're not a metal band. To me, it doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? I've got quite a broad taste in music outside of heavy metal. Heavy metal is where I kind of focus on, and rock is where I focus on. But there's a lot of sometimes petty arguing about genres and things like that. And I don't try to get that involved in it. If a band have clearly stated that they're stoner metal or stoner rock or doom or something on their thing, then you make one or two references to it, but mainly you can reference the bands that they sound like, and that usually will make people go, oh, okay, I understand, that sort of sound.
Yeah, reference points and whatever.
Yeah.
I imagine with the gardening core sector, there's not many that reference points out.
Not really, no. You can kind of maybe say, Napalm Death if they were fronted by Monty Don, I suppose. Then people get an idea, I guess.
Okay. You said about South Wales earlier, and you said about the kind of, I suppose, the prominence, I suppose, of metal and rock within South Wales. I mean, in my experience, it's like it's always kind of been there, in South Wales.
Yeah.
Like tonight, the CMF festival, which is going out right now on through Facebook live stream with the University of South Wales. I mean, it's the rock, it's the metal night, and there's the interview with Ramesh is going to go out at some point tonight, which I think you really like, by the way. I hope you would. Anyway, there's loads of great stuff on there. But so I was sort of South Wales has been a kind of a bastion, really, of rock and metal. Is that not the case?
Well, there's a lot of bands who have always done quite well on the scene, but a lot of it has been underground. So they play a lot of the smaller venues. Metal, not so much. So I know a couple of bands. I know you've got a thing with Lassatilia.
Yes.
Well, Lassatilia, and that's that kind of sound. So the kind of sort of stoner, psych, doom sort of, that's been around for a really long time in South Wales. And I mean, that kind of dates back to, bands like Budgie and whatever, where they had that more psychedelic sound. And, and you had a lot of bands coming from South Wales with that kind of, so there's almost a prominence for that, that they've come from but black metal and the more extreme side of it and whatever has always been a little bit more harder to kind of get at. So, bands such as Sodomized Cadaver and Agrona and whatever.
They're also on the bill tonight, aren't they? They're also involved. Sodomized Cadaver, I think.
Yeah, Sodomized Cadaver, I think you've got a couple of songs playing for this. But then equally, you've got a lot of the class. So if you go up into more sort of the valleys and the Steelhouse background, so kind of which is in Ebervale, you have a lot more of the bands that can be played on Planet Rock. So a lot of like hard rock bands and that sort of stuff, and that's always been around there. So you've kind of got these two different styles, and there's like a gap in the middle. And then the extreme metal does well. Don't get me wrong. When they put gigs on in Fuel and things like that, they are full a lot of the times, especially if you see, we do a lot of work with the Metal to the Masses competition every year, and obviously can't go ahead this year. We've missed a couple of them, quite a fair few of them, to be honest. But I mean, when we did the final last year or the year before, it was absolutely heaving Fuel. It was probably the busiest I've ever seen it. There was people outside. It was it kind of made you sort of stand there and go, this is great. This is what makes it all worthwhile, the constant slogging and going to the gigs with 10 people there. And, or sometimes going to gigs that we've done a few times, myself and my colleague Paul, who we do, who's been there sort of since the first incarnation of the Musipedia Metal. We've gone to gigs where we're the only paying customers and everybody else is bands. Do you know what I mean? It's like a 4-band bill, and you're the only 2 people who've actually paid to get in.
That's horrible. I mean, for the bands, that's horrible when you're playing to the bands.
It's not great. But then when you can go to places and you can see the more extreme style and whatever, really full and really busy, and it's great. There's not many feelings like it.
So with the metal music, and you said he talked about obviously the COVID-19 thing and everything else. I don't know whether you can be specific about it, but what's been the kind of impact on the kind of metal scene, of this crisis?
It's knocked a lot of it out. There's obviously, the major thing between sort of February and June is the lead up to Bloodstock with the Metal to the Masses. So that is a lot of the time guaranteed gigs for a lot of these bands who enter. So that hasn't been able to go ahead. There are, a lot of bands who all live in different houses, so can't necessarily play together or record so much or, get stuff done. There have been bands doing live streams. There have been bands doing acoustic stuff. There's a band called Sepulchre who are from Swansea, and the guitarist and the drummer are a couple. So they've been doing live streams and basically doing 2-person Sepulchre, which if anybody who's seen them live, they've actually played live like that a few times where members haven't been able to turn up because they've just played guitar and drums. Do you know what I mean? So they've managed to do a few bits. I know Johnny from Incursion has done a couple of things as well. There's been but it's especially because the venues that they normally play are shut. Venues like Fuel and the Green Rooms and the Moon and that sort of stuff are all closed, so they can't.
I'm just trying to think. Jack White, of course, and his was a kind of a equivalent to that, I suppose. The kind of the kind of with the stripes with the kind of the duo kind of thing.
Yeah. There's
sort of works.
It does, yeah. I mean, there's a few in the South Wales scene of just one man. It's one guy and a guitar. You know what I mean? And they've got drum backing tracks and that sort of stuff. And they enter and they play, and they're good fun to watch. But it has hit South Wales metal scene the South Wales music scene in general it's hit, but the metal scene more so because, like I said, it's other outside of like Metal to the Masses competitions and things like that. Unless the bands are established, it's difficult to kind of get people in.
What other venues are there for metal bands at the moment? The Doll's House springs to mind. You have metal there.
Yeah, there's the Doll's House. There's the Patriots in Crumbling.
Yeah,
a lot of rock, but because of obviously a lot. They have a lot more of the classic rock stuff there. Obviously,
down in Leith, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of top end in Newport.
Yeah.
Ish.
So there are venues there for the band. So when we get through this, which we will at some point,
yes,
I guess people will be crying out to go and do some slamming or whatever and get on with it.
A lot of the venues have signed up to that now. Save Our Venues Trust and their crowdfunding.
Oh right, okay.
So Fuel, the Moon, got the Patriots. Most of the South Wales venues have got crowdfunders going on for the Save Our Venues campaign. So, they're all trying to raise money so they can continue and after the because it's looking like they're probably going to be one of the last things to open.
Yes, yeah. And thinking about your site, which you already have something like 2,000, followers or whatever.
Yeah.
So you've done very well. So you're quite influential in that way. I guess you're supporting that campaign.
Yes, we are.
Support the venues. I don't know. It's like with Keep Cardiff Live, with Tony with Keep Cardiff Live. It's been a really strange couple of months, but in some ways, websites have to kind of reinvent themselves and find different ways of integrating with their audiences. Have you started developing any other ways of sort of adding additional content, which helps?
Well, we're quite lucky in that a lot of what we do is reviewing albums, and there are still albums being released, and most of these things you can get. As much as we love physical media, LPs and CDs and whatever, you can't get that as much anymore because of the distribution centers and things just aren't open. So we have had a couple of bands putting albums back and putting release dates back and things like this because they literally can't distribute them. And especially with the rock and metal scene, physical media is a lot more. People buy physical media a lot more than downloading it. So
why
I don't know. It just seems to be that they like stuff to hold on to. So they like records, they like CDs, they even like tapes. And a lot of the Doom bands release stuff on cassette, which is strange. But there we are. I'm not getting into that.
I can't really imagine that unless you're on a journey to a festival. Maybe I don't know. I can't see why would you choose to listen to cassette?
I think it's just another way of releasing kind of this old school media, like you've had all the vinyl come back and all this sort of stuff. But so you see a lot of gigs, merch. They've got merch stores, they've got T-shirts, they've got CDs and whatever. And there's people buying CDs and there are people buying LPs and so there's a lot of physical
clothing,
media.
of course. merchandise, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to wear one of our T-shirts. We've got our own merchandise, and that's purely
Well, you can
just
go and change if you want to.
No, it's all right. I'm okay. It only looks like the background. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Just a black T-shirt looks like a background. But it's just, I suppose, because of the physical media thing, that there have been people putting stuff off and putting albums back and things like this. But from the blog itself, we do a lot of reviewing. We try to do interviews, and we're still able to do that because that's a Zoom call or a Skype call, or sometimes even an email. You know what I mean? But we have looked into doing maybe reviews of some of the live streams and things like that when they work, because there was a couple of bands who were trying to play a live stream because they were supposed to go on an American tour. So they did a live stream, a paid-for live stream of both the bands playing in an empty venue. But the live stream went nuts.
Well,
and it just smashed up. So we'd be like, we can't
remember
able to watch it.
But I suppose tonight you could, of course, do some reviews of the CMF night, because it's going to be all.
Well, we're going to try to. We're going to watch it and try and do some reviews for you.
It's gone live just about a few minutes ago, actually, so that's good. So we've got a whole evening of that coming your way. Cool. I wanted to ask you, thanks very much for doing this, by the way.
No problem at all.
And just to say what I don't know if you can answer this. I asked Ramesh, interviewed him about an hour ago.
Uh-huh.
I asked him what his favorite kind of track that he'd ever recorded was, and he couldn't answer me. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So because he's done so much, I suppose. But for yourself, what's your all-time favorite band in your genre and why?
Ooh, that's a difficult one to ask.
Or genres, I suppose.
Yeah, I from personal, I mean, I know that we've got lots of different within the blog itself, lots of different favorite bands. I mean, Paul's is Rush. He's a huge Rush fan. Like I said, I come from kind of the more sort of prog and classic rock background. So, I mean, I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. And if you're talking about production and etc., you've got probably a band who've got some of the best produced albums ever.
Oh yeah. Can I just say to you, I don't know if you've read it. Have you read the Nick Mason book about Pink Floyd?
No, I haven't. No, I need to pick that up because I've read pretty much everything else about it.
Because their story is incredible. They've got an incredible story.
Yeah, very much so. But so that would be, in terms of sort of heavy metal, maybe bands that I got into really early that are still bands that I love now is Iron Maiden. I love Iron Maiden. I think they're great. They do exactly what they say on the tin. They haven't changed what they need to do. They haven't tried to become something different. And you see this so much with a lot of metal bands. They change their sound depending on a lot of bands that sort of went through grunge, went a bit grungy in the middle, or they tried to get a bit more, radio friendly. If anything, Maiden have gotten less radio friendly because now they've become more progressive and they've got longer songs and they've kind of gone the other way. But it's really difficult for someone like me who's a bit of a music nerd.
I know, it's a stupid question, isn't it?
To choose a favourite band. Well, it's not a stupid question. It's just one of those questions that you could talk probably for 4 hours on.
I know. Just to put it into context, you mentioned Iron Maiden there. For the kind of layman who isn't into that sort of territory, how big are Iron Maiden?
In this country, they're arena level. In Europe and in South America, they are stadium level. They're colossal. I mean, their gig at Rock in Rio back in the late 99, early 2000 was the largest gig ever. It had the most amount. Pretty much, there was I think some of their gigs in South America, people have smashed barricades down to get in. They're huge. We've always got this thing of. You see it in some of their live albums. We've got this thing on the blog about bleeding Iron Maiden. Do you know what I mean? That there's South American fans who are so nuts that you can see them doing the old school Iggy Pop, where he used to carve his name into his chair, and they do the same sort of thing. They're fanatical about it. The best person to talk about the fanaticism is Rob Tucker, who runs Fuel, because he's a massive. I mean, he's a proper Iron Maiden fanboy, huge.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's traveling.
I think Tony and I both know Rob from over the years from various activities. Thanks a lot, Matt. I mean, obviously, you know, between Keep Cardiff Live and Musipedia of Metal, I'm sure there's kind of fraternal sort of back patting that can go on, and we can support.
Yeah.
We're all
I'm sure
effectively doing the same thing. Yeah, ultimately, it all comes back to the same thing. It all comes back to music, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's the one great leveler, I think, more so than anything else.
It's surprising how true that is, honestly. I I'm in the university, just very briefly in the university, I go into meetings and I'm surrounded by people who, you know, their bodies arrive and then 10 minutes later someone carries their brain in, you know. Like ridiculously, stupidly intelligent. You start talking about music and bang, you know, they're just in the room with you. So it really works in that way.
It's one of those things that you can kind of talk to anybody about and they will have an opinion about it, which is what I like. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why, you know, I like doing the blog and why we like running it, is because even within it, we've all got different opinions. We've all got, and we don't necessarily agree with each other's opinions all the time. Sometimes we do, but that's the good thing.
It's better if you don't.
No, exactly right. Otherwise it would just be, you know, 8 or 10 people all having this agreeing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you don't want that.
No, God no. It wouldn't be anywhere near enough fun if we all agreed.
Anyway, we'd better leave it because we got to get to this festival, you know, because it's you know, the closest thing we got to a live music festival going on, which is CMF. Yeah. I hope you enjoy it. And write about it if you do, and you know, if you don't, then don't write anything, you know.
I'm sure we can write something about it. No problem.
And nice to virtually meet you. Hopefully, at some point we'll meet you more in a physical way, and maybe you into a studio for a chat.
Excellent. Yeah, great. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be really good, Matt. Thanks
again,
Matt.
Thanks very much.
And just to tell people to check out Matt's website and his Facebook page as well.
Yeah, we'll share that via the site as well, won't we?
Yeah, awesome. Definitely. And thanks a lot again for your time, Matt. Cheers.
No problem. Cheers. Bye-bye.